is, of course, Notes from Hollywood, which includes profiles of people passionately pursuing professions in the entertainment industry. And the reason that I have decided to interview author David Eugene Perry in this particular series on PromoHomo.TV is what novelist doesn't want to see his book made into a movie, or her book, or their book, depending upon their gender. I know this particular person is a man, David Eugene Perry. So his book, Upon This Rock, is a critically acclaimed mystery novel praised by Tales of the City author Armistead Maupin as an elegant, twisty thriller, and by best-selling writer and Guggenheim fellow Fenton Johnson as the gay DaVinci Code, but a whole lot better. Maupin, who has appeared on PromoHomo.TV, calls Upon This Rock an elegant, twisty thriller in which a gay couple investigates a mysterious suicide in a scenic Italian hill town. It's not hard to imagine that this book could do for Orvieto what Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil did for Savannah. So my guest on the show today with sound is going to be author David Eugene Perry, and I'm very much looking forward to that. As always, for their support of my show, I want to thank DAP Health, serving Riverside County. They've helped me live powerfully with HIV for a decade. Actually, I've been living with HIV longer than that. But they've expanded their mission, and over half their clients are not people that are living with HIV, and I'm just so appreciative of them. I also want to give out a shout out to our local restaurant here in the Palm Springs area. I state that because my audience is worldwide, to 849 for their support. And last night I had an 849 burger with white cheddar cheese, raw onion, crispy french fries. It was delicious. Save the date. So we know that the pandemic is progressing enough that I'm the official broadcaster of Palm Springs Pride. They have authorized me to tell you to save the date for Pride Week. If you don't know, most of the big events happen on the weekend at the end of the week, which in this case for 2021 is November 5th through the 7th. If you're in the Coachella Valley and you're wanting more connection to the community, check out the centercv.org. They're all about building a vibrant community. And guess what? There is now PromoHomo.TV merchandise on Amazon. If you send me a photo of yourself with the merch, with your permission, I'll feature it on the show and in other promos for the merch. So you get promo yourself. And that's why this is called PromoHomo.TV. So my guest today is an author, but I'm also an author. And in June, I'm going to be doing a limited series focused on my Living Powerfully with HIV memoir, Life Positive, A Journey to the Center of My Heart. I'm going to go through highlights of the book between June and World AIDS Day, which is December 1st. And one of the things that you'll read about in the book is the creation of a worldwide music video campaign to promote HIV testing and safer sex. It's on YouTube, subtitled in 21 languages, or you can ask your smart speaker to play my song. Now, getting really promo homo on you, if you're in casting, please check out my acting clips in commercials and films right there, PromoHomo.TV/actor. And perhaps I'm right for a part that you are casting. Maybe I'll end up in the movie version of David's book. We'll see. So I'm so excited because, this show is fueled by the PromoHomo.TV superstars, and I have two more of them, and you're going to know who they are. But I want to let you know just a little bit more about who the PromoHomo.TV superstars are.
I'll be your light.
So, really, for $3 a month, you can have your name listed in the PromoHomo.TV Superstar section of PromoHomo.TV. And that can be hyperlinked to the social media profile of your choice. And the 5 most recent superstars get listed in the opening credits, which is happening now.
Live your life like a dreamer. Fly all over the world. Open yourself so the world can see. You're a beautiful pearl. Live your day like you mean it. And don't forget who you are. You're free to go anywhere. There's no distance too far.
And I promised that I was going to have a spectacular guest on the show today. My guest today is David Eugene Perry, who has written Upon This Rock. And I actually want to tell you a little bit what the book is about. I'm actually going to give you a theatrical reading, not really, just a reading, of the synopsis from Amazon. An American couple in Italy investigate the suicide of a cleric in the picturesque Italian city of Orvieto and find themselves plunged into a conspiracy that may destroy the Catholic Church. In the stunning thriller Upon This Rock, San Francisco business executive Lee Maury and his husband Adriano come to Orvieto to soak in the city's beauty and rich history. But Lee becomes fascinated with a local tragedy: the suicide 1 year early of Deacon Andrea, a much-loved candidate for the priesthood. Growing obsessed with learning the truth behind Andrea's death, Lee and Adriano stumble upon a conspiracy of terrorism, human trafficking, and a plot to destroy one of the church's most sacred shrines, all somehow linked across 500 years to Renaissance Pope Clement VII, who escaped to Orvieto after the sack of Rome in 1527. Before they know it, Lee and Adriano's dream vacation becomes a race to save innocent lives and not get killed in the process. That's one of the books that I can't wait until they make a movie. So let's welcome to the show David Eugene Perry. Welcome, David.
Wow. I feel like John F. Kennedy after Marilyn Monroe sang him happy birthday, saying, now I can retire from politics. That was terrific. And I also just want to say, I think all your sponsors are incredible. 849 Sister Restaurant, 1501 Gastropub is where, once COVID protocols allow us, I'm going to do my first book signing and event in Palm Springs. So thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Willie Ryan is the owner of part owner with Chad Gardner of that restaurant. I haven't been there yet, but I look forward to going. And congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's having been in public relations for 36 years, it is a different experience working on promoting your own book. I mean, my publisher, Linden Press, has been incredible. I've got an amazing publicist, Jaguar Bennett. I love that name, Jaguar Bennett. He's a stand-up comedian, and I told him, I said, you're in trouble. You've got a PR person as an author now. I hope you don't mind ideas. So it's different promoting your own book, but thank you for this. What a great, great opening segment.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, frankly, if I was required to read the books of the authors I was interviewing before I interviewed them, I would have to say no because of time constraints. But your book is definitely a book that I want to read. And it's definitely a book that I hope does get made into a movie. It looks like it could even be developed for an actual series based upon what I know about it. But before we get into whether or not you share that vision, tell me a little bit about how you decided you wanted to be an author and how you actually became one, because I'm sure that's a journey in and of itself.
Well, sure. Well, thank you very much for that. And yes, just to put it right out there, my vision is to have this made into a movie, more specifically kind of one of those series like Dr. Blake's Mysteries that you see on Netflix or Amazon Prime, and to have it made in Orvieto, which of course will certainly help restore tourism there, because Italy, like so many countries, has been devastated by COVID. You know, I've been a writer ever since I was a little boy. There's one book that's still in the drawer that I started writing during the other pandemic, AIDS, HIV, when I was in my 20s. And frankly, I never finished it because I remember thinking, if I finish it, I'm going to die. And now that I'm 40 years later in another pandemic, I think maybe I can finish it with that perspective. But that's another story. So I started a career in public relations, have been in PR and marketing for 35 years. And one of my writing heroines is P.D. James, an incredible mystery writer, beautiful writer. She didn't start writing until she was in her 50s. And all that wisdom influenced her writing. So I'm hoping that maybe that is why I waited so long to have the life experience to do it. You know, the book is a mystery, and it is based on, though, a real event. My husband, Alfredo, and I went to Orvieto, Italy for sabbatical in 2014. In that year, we lost our four best friends, our gay family, what Armistead Maupin would call our logical family versus our biological family. Wonderful men, Anthony Turney, Otis Charles, Felipe Sanchez Perez, Tom Dross. These were our family. These were men we saw every day. And we were their caregivers, and they all passed away within a year, and we were a wreck. And our dear friends, Tony Origlio and Kit Vanderbilt, offered to do a house swap. They took our place in San Francisco. We took their apartment in Orvieto. And literally the day we arrived, November 30th, 2014, we found out that it was the anniversary of the suicide of this young man, Luca Sedeta. That's the real name. He was promised to be a priest, and there was a rumor that he was gay. And he was so devastated, he jumped off the cliffs of Orvieto. And this angered me and upset me and made me obsessed with the real story. I was raised Catholic, although I got over that, thankfully, a long time ago. But I know what a young man thinking about going into the priesthood and dealing with that and the conflicted versions of homosexuality that the church has made us suffer with for hundreds of years. And this story led to a fictional account of it, Upon This Rock.
Well, there's the cover right now. It's a beautiful cover, and I feel like some of the best fiction does come from real life inspiration. Often you hear when authors or writers talk about what inspires them, it is a lot of it rooted in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved history, and I think the character Lee in the book, Upon This Rock, says Orvieto has more history per square inch than any place on earth. That's pretty much true. It was the center of the Etruscan world 3,000 years ago. Under Roman occupation, it was part of the Papal States. It was occupied by first the Italian fascists and then the Nazis during World War II. I actually met people who remember and were there during the Nazi occupation. It's a place that just exudes history at every step. And it's a small town, a sizable expat population, people from the United States, Canada, the UK, and we fell in love with it instantly. And every place I walked, I would hear this story of Luca Sedeta. And also I found out that 500 years earlier, it's where Pope Clement VII was when the ambassadors from Henry VIII came and said, oh, hi, we would like to have our king, Henry VIII, divorce Catherine of Aragon. Well, the Pope, he dillied and dallied and decided not to do anything, and the result was the Church of England was formed. So my novel, which is set in the present day, December 2013 to be specific, it's a mystery, but the solution to the mystery is 500 years earlier when the Pope was there. And I found the conflict between the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the backstory of all of that united with these two gay heroes, Adriano and Lee. It fell into my brain literally instantly. I remember Alfredo and I were in Venice visiting, and I told him the idea for the story, and Alfredo said, sounds like a good idea. And he's my harshest critic, but also my biggest fan, so I knew I had something. And I wrote 60% of the book in our first 3 months there, finished it over the last 2 years, completed it in 2018, and got the contract in 2019, and did the editing during 2020. And I thought, COVID's a terrible time to market a book, but evidently a lot of people are reading. So the book is doing well and actually has been nominated for this year's Benjamin Franklin Award as Best Gay Novel of 2020, produced by the Independent Booksellers Association. So it's very prestigious. I'm a finalist, and I'll find out in May whether I get a gold medal. So fingers crossed.
How fantastic. Now, how does someone get nominated for that award?
You know, that's a good question. It is submitted by your publisher. So my publisher, Linden Press, a small independent book publisher in Fresno, California. Thank you, Kent Sorsky, my publisher, and Jaguar Bennett. I was very honored. I actually had two publishers offer me a contract, which for a first-time novelist is really quite extraordinary, and I just feel so blessed and lucky. They submitted the book. Over 1,500 novels were submitted for consideration as Best Gay Book of 2020, and I'm one of three finalists. So people read it, and we'll see. I'm glad people are interested in the story. It's a mystery, but I think there's a lot of wit to it. One of my readers said that Lee and Adriano are kind of the gay version of the Thin Man, Nick and Nora Charles from the fabulous movies of the 1930s and 40s. And that makes me happy because someone asked me, is it a gay novel? And in my mind, it's just a novel because the gay characters are as, you know, ordinary and everyday as everyone in the book. There's a bisexual, there's older people, there's younger people, there are Italians, they're U.S. citizens. It's just this conglomerate of people, unique characters that I found in Orvieto and based some of the characters on.
Well, one of the things that fascinates me is that who has read the book and given you quotes. So my first real life encounter that I recall with Armistead Maupin was at a party for Paul Monet while he was living. And it was Paul Monet himself, I believe even in the documentary about his life, I want to say it's called On the Brink of Summer's End, but I could be wrong on that. But Paul Monet was being honored. He referred to it as the memorial service when the person is present. I'm paraphrasing. He said that while he was there. But Patricia Nell Warren was there, and Armistead Maupin, and there were other literary greats there. I want to say Tony Kushner was even there. I believe he was. It was an amazing gathering. It's a bit foggy. And then I ended up coming across Armistead on other occasions in my work as a journalist, and then through mutual friends and through the artwork of his husband. How did you come to know Armistead Maupin, or do you? And how did he end up with your book and giving you that lovely quote?
Well, thanks. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. I handed over my cell phone. Well, in the 1980s, right out of college, I moved to Washington, D.C. I was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. My degree was in theater and voice in upstate New York, State University of New York. And at the time, I thought I was going to be an actor, but I realized soon that I was better backstage and offstage than on stage, although it did give me a good training in voice, which has been good for a 30-year PR career. Moved to D.C., started writing for American Theater Magazine, for the Washington Blade, doing theater reviews, doing all kinds of stuff, and writing for The Advocate. And the place that I hung out was a wonderful bookstore on Connecticut Avenue. Richard Labonte was the owner. He's now in Canada. Hello, Richard. And when I found out I was moving to San Francisco to take a job with San Francisco Opera, he said, "Oh, well, you got to call Armistead Maupin." I said, I can't call Armistead Maupin. He's, you know, a god. He said, "Oh, yeah, his phone number's listed. Call him." So I got to San Francisco, and I looked him up. I called, and he said, "Oh, lovely to meet you. I'm doing a reading tomorrow at a bookstore in the Mission with," and of course, the name's going to go out of my head, the author of The Celluloid Closet. And
Vito Russo.
Thank you so much. My brain, short-term memory. So I walked in, and there's Vito Russo and Armistead. And we hit it off, started chatting. The next thing you know, I'm back at Armistead's house having a drink with his then partner, Terry Anderson, and we became pals. And over the years, we worked on fundraising events together. He was just such a supporter of my writing. And when he moved to London, he knew I was working on this book, and he said, "Well, send me a copy. I'll read it." I said, "You're in." So I knew that Armistead is a kind, gentle man, a Southerner like me. He's from Raleigh. I'm from Richmond. If he didn't like it, he would just say, David, I can't review the book. So he called me in March of last year, right when COVID was starting. I'll never forget it. FaceTime from London, he and his husband, Christopher Turner. And he said, I've got your review. And he read it, and I started to cry. Because
who wouldn't?
He knew and I knew that sort of blurb would help me with sales. And so I couldn't be more grateful to Armistead. He has done more, not only for LGBT literature, but for the LGBT community than almost anyone around. When he wrote the first Tales of the City, when he was a columnist at the Chronicle, and wrote that incredible coming out letter where Michael comes out to his family in the letter when he's in the hospital, that letter has been turned into a theater piece. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world that have used that letter to come out to their own family. I get emotional even just thinking about it. And his phrase, logical family, has become something that has become a rallying cry for all of us. So I really just give a shout out to Armistead and Christopher, living a truly authentic life. He's a true hero of mine, and I think to everyone in the LGBT community. Well done. Well,
I have to agree with everything that you said about that, and of course about the concept of logical family. One of the things I say that is a sort of my own way of saying that is that, sometimes our true family and the people we share DNA with overlap, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my issues with my family, although not my cousins and my aunts. They're all good-hearted, rural Southern people in Virginia. I remember when I'd come to San Francisco, I was watching this documentary on Rock Hudson. And it just so happened at that moment I got a call from my dear cousin Claire, who's more like a sister in Richmond. And she said, "What you doing, hon?" And I said, "Well, I'm watching this documentary on Rock Hudson." She said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Oh, well, I think it's," I didn't know what to say. And she said, "Well, I think it's sad that he felt he couldn't live his life authentically." And I said, "Well, boy, if this is an invitation to come out, I don't know what is." I said, "Well, Claire, you know that I'm gay." She said, "Oh, sure, we've known that since you were 5 years old." Said, we were just waiting for you to tell us. And I said, "Well, why didn't you say anything?" And then she got very serious and she said, "David, that was for you to tell us when you were ready." And she said, "But your grandmother always knew. And right before she died, she said to me, 'Claire, you make sure that David always has a home in Virginia.' So anyone who thinks that all Southern Baptists are backward and bigoted, they don't know my family, because I was raised by Southern women who are a cross between the cast of Steel Magnolias and Designing Women. And I hope that a lot of their personality goes into the women in Upon This Rock, because to me, one of the most important months in the year, besides June, LGBT Pride Month, is March, International Women's Month.
So many things to talk about in what you said, but one of the things I want to hone in on is the fact that one of the things that we knew as a movement empirically is that the people that knew they knew someone that was a member of the LGBTQ community were supportive of our equality, and the people that didn't know they knew someone were often going to be opposed. And I was very involved in the work of the Experience Weekend, which was formerly the Advocate Experience and then just became known as the Experience. And their whole work was about empowering people to live their best lives and their authentic selves. And the Experience, along with National Gay Rights Advocates, founded National Coming Out Day in 1988, which came out of the War Conference, which was a group of 100 major LGBTQ leaders from across the country the previous year. And that very first year, that National Coming Out Day was featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And at the time, her daily audience, I think, was around 25 million. But that's just one example of my story, of your story, of the myriad of stories that have allowed the world to change. But the fight is never over, and there are so many people that are still experiencing the same intense pressures because of the Even someone in Palm Springs, a gay mecca, could be trapped in a family or a church that has contempt for them.
Absolutely. We do work. I mean, besides, as an author, our work is, my husband, Alfredo Casus, and I own a public relations and design firm. And one of our clients is Lyric, Lavender Youth in San Francisco. They have been working with LGBTQ plus youth for, so many years. And COVID has been so difficult on LGBTQ youth because there's some young people who, because of COVID, haven't been able to get out. They've been stuck in homes that have been emotionally and sometimes physically abusive. So the fight absolutely continues to go on. Those of us who are older and have, earned a lot of gray hairs, we need to be here not for ourselves, but speak up and write books and talk for the young people that are coming behind us. People say, do you and Alfredo have children? I'm like, well, no, not biologically, but every member of the LGBTQ youth that we see, they're our children. We need to hold them up and let them know that things do get better, but they only get better if we keep fighting. You mentioned the experience. My editor at The Advocate was Mark Thompson, and of course his husband, Malcolm Boyd, extremely involved in the experience. And you mentioned Tony Kushner. It's interesting that kind of pantheon of gay writers you met. I had, in my copy of the script of Angels in America is in the LGBT Museum in San Francisco. I was the first PR person ever to do PR for Angels in America when it was commissioned in San Francisco by Oscar Eustis at the Eureka Theater. And Tony was there. At that point, the epic that became Angels in America, which I think now is a total of 6 hours long, it was 9 hours long. And Tony was there every day. It became an incredible phenomenon. I've seen it many, many times. And I remember as a PR person, I had the distinction of having a photo, the first ever photo of a drag queen, I was told, to be in USA Today, Stephen Spinella, in that fabulous, iconic photo that became famous from Angels in America. So these writers that I have met through my career as a journalist over the years and in PR have influenced everything I've done. And I think anyone who says, how do you become a writer? Well, you sit down and you start writing. And as I think it was Ann Beattie said, only write what only you can write. Write stories that touch your heart, because if they touch you, they'll touch others.
Totally. And there's another kind of bizarre connection. So Malcolm Boyd passed away before Mark Thompson. And when Mark Thompson passed away, a friend of mine was involved in the estate sale. And I actually did some live broadcast in the home to help promote some of the items that were going to become available. And I didn't know it at the time, but as a thank you, I was given 2 items from the home. And I can look, and one of them is the movie poster, I'm looking at it now, for Hope Along the Wind, The Life of Harry Hay. Yeah. And the other one are these amazing woven string of bells. I could describe them as Tibetan bells. I don't know if they are, but they have the most magical sound. And I guess the greater point for mentioning that, and I'd love for you to just talk about this, is that when we are expressing our truth and living our lives, authentic connection happens, and it happens in the most surprising places.
Yeah, when Alfredo and I got married, we've been together 22 years, and like so many same-sex couples, we've had multiple ceremonies. I always said that same-sex marriage would save the catering and special event industry. But when we have our ceremony in the backyard of fabulous designer Steven Sussman in San Francisco, then supervisor, now former state senator Mark Leno came. It was a wonderful, emotional ceremony. And Otis Charles, first openly gay bishop of any Christian church in the world, presided. Anthony Turney, openly gay deacon and longtime executive director of the Names Project AIDS Memorial Quilt, officiated. And at one point they said, well, now you can say anything you want, free form in the ceremony. And Alfredo said to me, you can even use your favorite word, serendipity, as much as you want during our life together. Because I say serendipity all the time. There's so much serendipity in all the things you just talked about. being in the right place at the right time or wishful luck, I don't know. But the serendipity of how this book came about is very linked to all the people you mentioned, Armistead and Tony Kushner, all these other people, Mark Thompson. And something that Mark and Malcolm talked about a lot was gay spirituality. And I've always said that I think it's more difficult to talk about spirituality than it is about sex in the gay community, because that's everywhere. And in the book, the two characters, Adriano and Lee, Adriano is vehemently anti-church. The character of Lee at one point wanted to be a priest. So I wouldn't say that he's pro-church, but he's fascinated by the church. And that is a conflict in their relationship in the book, but also a conflict that works its way out through the plot of the novel. You know, someone asked me the other day, is it a pro-church or an anti-church book? I said, well, it's certainly not pro-church. It's not anti-church. It just takes place in Italy. And if you have a book that takes place in Italy with a gay couple, the church comes into play. Because when I was in Catholic school, I heard that 60% of the Roman Catholic clergy was gay. And in my experience, it's far higher. So, you know, there have been very few times in the history of any Christian church where LGBT people have been held up and celebrated. You know, what Pope Francis said just a few weeks ago really made me angry and hurt, because everyone says, oh, he's better, he's better. Well, until the Catholic Church actually acknowledges that LGBT people are as beautiful and to be celebrated as any other person on earth, there is no justice in the church. So I want people who say, oh, well, this book is a little churchy. No, it's about two people who experience the church in very different ways. It's very much about an openly gay couple and a mystery.
You talked about no longer being a Catholic, or you described yourself as a recovering Catholic. I think that's a common description. Maybe I'm just transposing it onto you. How do you define your current view of spirituality?
You know, it's funny. I appreciate the question. If you ask me I like to say I believe in the divine, which means, or I had a meditation teacher for 6 years, Isana Ma, who was based in Hindu tradition. And she once said to me, I know something that I do not know. So I don't care whether you call it God or whatnot, but to me, it's the ineffable. When someone asks me, what is my concept of spirituality? I say the second before the Big Bang. I believe in science. But I always go back to infinity, which if you go to sleep at night and your mind is whirling, going, well, what happens? What happens? What happens? What is the second before the Big Bang? And that is my concept of whatever the divine is. You know, my friend Anthony Turney, who is cited in the book and who is my mentor, I met him when he was the deputy chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, my first job in what is now sadly the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. He said to me once, you know, God is everywhere. Sometimes you can even find him in church.
I love that. So I have an answer to the same question, because for me, it's an important quest. So I embrace any part of any teaching that celebrates the universal equality of humanity. And I reject any part of any teaching that in order to be right has to make other people wrong.
Yeah, my husband Alfredo, you know, some people say, well, is Adriano and Lee, are they inspired by anyone? I said, well, they're fictional characters, but I will say some real life experiences inform them. And Alfredo has always said that one of the things that he dislikes the most in people are self-righteousness. People who use Christ or Christianity to beat people up. Neither of us have any patience for it. You know, another philosopher once said, what do you think of Christianity? And the philosopher supposedly said, well, I think we should try it. So, you know, to me, writing about these issues is important, because especially last year, whether you're religious or spiritual or atheist or agnostic, that's not the point. We're all human. And we're on this planet for a very, very short time. And I think last year, COVID was what I call the first Twitter pandemic. You know, more people died during World War II. More people died during the 1918 pandemic. That's not the point. For a moment in 2020, the entire planet realized we're going through something at the same moment, and we can all see it at the same moment on Twitter, whether it's in Brazil or Japan or China or Micronesia. And I think if it didn't make all of us at some point think about what it means to be human, we weren't really thinking. I'm really hoping that out of COVID, we become a more thoughtful, compassionate people. It's a low bar, but I'm hopeful.
Are there any juicy scenes in your book?
Yeah. So now to elevate it, not just talk about church, there is a character that several people, including my dear friend, major travel consultant David Kleiman, he's kind of obsessed with, the bisexual Swiss guard Grigori. And the name Grigori in Italian means, or in Latin, means fallen angel. And as someone said, when we're casting the movie, everyone wants to cast Grigori because he is someone that is so sexual and so beautiful that he walks in a room and pets follow him home. I mean, he's just hot. And he's got some very steamy scenes. There are also some scenes between Adriano and Lee, but kind of like that famous theater phrase, their noise is off. Because I think writing a sex scene would be challenging. I think it's more interesting if you wonder what happens in your own brain. So the sex scene between Adriano and Lee, you basically see a pile of clothes afterwards. There are some steamy scenes. It's also very witty. Several people have said to me that they find it a witty novel. That makes me pleased because I think when you're dealing with a novel that deals with, frankly, human trafficking, because this novel deals with that, terrorism, you need to have some sections that lighten the mood. Someone asked me, what's the theme of the book? And I said, refugees. When we were in Italy writing, the refugee crisis was at full tilt. 1,000 people that summer died trying to cross the Mediterranean from Africa into Italy. It was everywhere in the newspaper. My colleague Angela Gorfati, who's the Rome bureau chief for The Guardian, wrote movingly about the thousands of people that risked their lives to save their lives and their families' lives by crossing in flimsy boats to Italy. And everyone in the book is a refugee. Pope Clement's a refugee. Adriano and Lee are refugees from their family and a horrible past. And there is indeed an African brother and sister who risk everything to come to Italy, and they deal with the prejudice there. We would see migrants on the streets of Orvieto just trying to make a living, and some people were kind to them, but others weren't. So everyone in my novel is, in a sense, a refugee, including the main characters. And of course, the young man, Deacon Andrea, who commits suicide and begins the investigation by Adriano and Lee, he's a refugee from the church as well. And I'm happy to say that Alfredo and I found the grave of the actual real person that inspired the book, Deacon Luca Sedeta. We went to his hometown in the south of Italy, Mattina, and I'm happy to say that his grave is beautifully maintained. So someone remembers him and loves him. But the idea that this 28-year-old boy, so tortured by the church that he killed himself, made me want to somehow make his memory live. And that's why the book, Upon This Rock, is in part dedicated to the real Luca Sedeta.
Well, unfortunately, there's uncountable numbers, which is another way of countless, but I just wanted to say uncountable of numbers of people that have committed suicide because of their self-contempt taught to them by religious bigots.
Yeah, the church doesn't have a great history in this. Not a lot of religions do. Our two friends that I mentioned, Otis Charles and Anthony Turney, were both members of the Episcopal Church. And the Episcopal Church, as Christian churches go, is pretty good. They're doing their best, but you find bias everywhere. But I will say that the Episcopal Church has been a leader in welcoming and celebrating LGBTQ lives. In Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, I know this because Anthony and I actually painted it for the first time, is the world's only AIDS interfaith chapel dedicated to people who have died from AIDS, HIV. And the centerpiece is an incredible altarpiece designed by Keith Haring, along with Harry Hay, who you mentioned, one of the original honorees on the Rainbow Honor Walk, which, when I get old and gray, the only thing I'll be remembered for is I'm the co-founder of the Rainbow Honor Walk in San Francisco, the first LGBT walk of fame in the world.
So two of the names that you just mentioned, again, I have a connection with them. So I was at Harry Hayes' 80th birthday party. I'm sure one of them. It was at a meeting. It was at a meeting of Queer Nation at Plummer Park in West Hollywood. There were a small group of us. I wasn't a radical fairy, but I'm sure there were radical fairies there. There was, I think, maybe 10, 12, 8 people in a circle, and we all had a candle, and Harry had a candle, and he went around the circle, and he lit our candles one by one and gave us a kiss.
It's so Harry.
There's someone else you just mentioned that I'm forgetting who else you just mentioned, but I had a connection.
Keith Haring. Keith Haring.
Oh, Keith Haring. Well, so I worked on staff for the first National Coming Out Day. Keith Haring designed the official poster, and he sent a number of signed copies to the office, and I have one of them signed by him hanging in my home.
I want to see a copy of it because, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't, I hope everyone buys my book. That's terrific. My publisher will be happy. But really what I want you to do is donate to the Rainbow Honor Walk, www.rainbowhonorwalk.org. This is an organization. There are 44 plaques that have been approved. There are over 30 in the ground now in San Francisco, paying tribute and celebrating our LGBTQ heroes, people like Oscar Wilde, Frida Kahlo, Jane Addams. These people lived lives that raised us all up. And it's an all-volunteer organization. I was one of the co-founders. I was the chair for 10 years. The fabulous Donna Sachet is the new chair. But all the money for the plaques has to be raised privately. There's no paid staff. So rainbowhonorwalk.org. It's a way
It's on screen. I put it on scrin for you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
I had my production team throw that up on the screen.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to say about Upon This Rock that we haven't talked about?
I just want to say that when I was doing PR for many books over the years, I would have authors tell me, the character spoke to me. And I used to think, God, that's the most pretentious piece of BS I've ever heard in my life. And then I experienced it because I remember one day when I was working on the book, I said, oh my goodness, I figured out the ending. And Alfredo said, well, you've been working on it for 3 months. The ending of the book changed drastically during the writing, and it's because the character spoke to me. And that's something that I always heard Armistead say. It's not about the plot. It's about the characters. So I've already started working on the next book, and several of the characters, certainly Lee and Adriano and the spy, Magda, come into it. The most important thing is the characters. And I'm hoping that inspired by the wonderful characters who millions of people have come to love in Tales of the City, that people come to love the characters in Upon This Rock, Lee and Adriano, LaDonna Volsini, Magda, and the kindly old priest, Don Bello. So it's an honor to be on the show, and I took a while to get here, but yeah, I'm a first-time author. There we are. I turned 60 this year, so I got it in before I turned 60.
Well, congratulations. I'm not far behind you. So I want to fuel your fantasies a bit, not about what you think. So I'm going to just name a few things, and you tell me which one's at the top of your list. Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, any of the above, one I didn't name.
So here's the thing, and I would be lying if I said that one of the reasons I was excited to be on your show was because you have a connection to Hollywood. Everyone who has read this book said to me, David, it reads like a screenplay. When I wrote it, I saw the scenes. Orvieto is one of the most scenic places I've ever been. And I worked in cruise ships. I went around the world 2.5 times by ship. I visited 70 countries. There is no place more beautiful than Orvieto. The filming there would be spectacular. And it looks the same now as it did hundreds of years ago. So the idea of making it into a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or an HBO or Logo series to me are foremost in my mind. So anyone out there who's watching,
okay, so I'm going to be slapped.
I want to option this book for a film. Help me.
Okay, but I'm going to be slapped. I don't think your logo's big enough for this story. I think you definitely need to stick with much bigger, broader companies like HBO, Showtime, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Now, I'll never be on Logo, but I wasn't ever on Logo before anyway, so there. No, I love Logo. They're really powerful. They're groundbreaking. They have an important place in history, but this needs a bigger budget.
Yeah, Netflix and Amazon Prime. I've had several people talk to me, including the great Jan Wall, the Hat Lady film critic who grew up in Hollywood, to help me cast it. Alfredo and I both agree that one of the people has to be Sophia Loren, who now is the right age to play the character of La Donna Volsini, this older Italian woman who has the whole history and the solution to the mystery in her body, a Sophia Loren. You know, someone like Maggie Smith, to me, would be amazing, maybe, as the kind of bitchy expat blogger, Peggy. That would be incredible. And, of course, casting the gorgeous, sexy Grigori Swiss Guard, that'll be fun. And then who would do Adriano and Lee? I don't know. But casting this would be fun for anyone. And, boy, being set in Orvieto, part in Rome, and without giving away the plot, there is a scene also in Ireland. So one of the first readings I did was with the gay literature group in Ireland. So you have most of the book in Orvieto, but then the solution to the book takes place in Ireland. So this would be a great, epic Netflix show. So if you're a screenwriter, if you have a connection to a producer, call me.
Okay, and I would lose my title as PromoHomo if I didn't throw that up there right now.
Well, you know what? I think that there are several characters in the book that you would be incredible for, Nicholas. One of them, there is the doctor, Luca, who is a very mysterious but handsome character. Dr. Luca would be in there. And also you could be the evil Bishop Arnaud as well. I think you could play an evil Bishop Arnaud. If he were still alive, the actor that was in the Harry Potter series who played Snape, what's his name?
Yes, I can't tell you. I know who you're talking about.
That's who it would be.
I would need to work with a dialect coach, but believe me, I would give it my best. Your contact information for the book, I've been putting it on the screen throughout, but I'm just going to put it up again right there. There's the Facebook address, the Twitter handle, your cause du jour, Rainbow Honor Walk for people that want to support an important cause. And if people go to this episode at PromoHomo.TV, they can find more information and more links on behalf of your book. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to let you have the last word.
Well, the last word is, my grandmother always said the most important things to say in life are please and thank you. So thank you for having me here. And please keep reading, keep writing, and yes, shameless plug, buy my book, and you can also find me on my website, davidperry.com.
Thank you, davidperry.com. Thank you for watching. David, stay still because I want to speak to you after the show.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Everybody else for watching, thank you. And remember, I have 2 new Hollywood PromoHomo.TV superstars, and you can find out their names right now.
Live your life like a dreamer. Fly all over the world. Open yourself so the world